Okay, hi everyone. So what I'm going to do here is a video that hopefully will make it easier for you if, like me, you have an elderly relative who is taken sick in the UK when you live abroad, in my case in New York. So there are a few things going on here. Now, I'm the only next of kin, so it's not as if there are any family members in the UK who could take care of things for me as far as everything that's involved in the fallout from a case like this. As I say, my father had a stroke in November 2019, was admitted to Northwick Park in northwest London, and was in, I think, for 3 days, declined a package of care upon his release. As I'm sure you know, with the older generation, there's a lot of, oh, I'm fine, I don't need anything more. Big mistake in my father's case. He clearly did need support and didn't get it because he declined. So if you're in a position where you can correct that at the outset, do. Part of what the NHS will arrange on, I believe, any hospitalisation beyond 6 days, you'll need to check into this, but I think my numbers are right. Beyond 6 days, the patient gets offered a package of care upon release. The package of care in this case involves an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, and a social worker to come and assess the patient once they are back in their residence. In my case, my father's flat in West London, ground floor, one step to get in. His mobility and his balance were greatly affected by the stroke, so he did need things to happen. So in a case like this, that's something that you're going to try and get from the hospital or the care facility. You want a package of care to be arranged upon release. So my father was assessed when I brought him out on January 2nd. The very next day, actually, the NHS were great. They had a physical therapist there and an occupational therapist. They came and did assessments of what he needed. Ealing Enable, which was the local London Council's elderly and I guess geriatric support division, arranged to come in and put some hand supports on the tile wall of his bathtub so that he could more easily get in and out of the bath. But essentially you're going to need to make sure you get that package of care arranged. Now, that's one side of things, the medical side. Another is, depending on how incapacitated your parent or elderly relative is, can they pay their bills? Can they still get to the bank? Can they still write checks and mail them off to pay the gas and the electric and all that sort of thing? So I went to my father's bank branch in Ealing in West London, explained the situation. The only thing he did not have on a direct debit during his hospitalisation was his credit card bill, which he, for some reason, would pay by cheque. So the branch said, okay, here's what you can do. Write a letter, have him sign the letter, giving authorization for us to set up a direct debit to pay the credit card bill monthly, and we will honour that. So I actually took that up to the hospital and had my father sign that, dropped it in before I flew back to New York. So you'll need to make sure that the bills are getting taken care of, particularly if there's a hospitalisation, if there's a time at a rehab facility perhaps. You want to make sure that the gas, the electric, the rent, the mortgage, all of those things are being taken care of, ideally by direct debit. Now, in a case like mine where I don't know the passwords for online banking accounts or anything like that, things will come up. So I then filled in these two forms, which you can get from government sites. I think the Inland Revenue site, actually. Office of the Public Guardian, according to this. It's called a power of attorney. So you fill in the power of attorney. You have the patient, in this case, fill in certain sections and sign certain sections. There's really not a lot for them to fill in case their handwriting has become difficult to read and difficult to form, as is in the case of my father. So you fill nearly everything in online yourself. There's a small section that they're going to need to sign. But once you have these can be sent to the patient's bank, financial institutions, also, more importantly, their doctors and their hospitals. And giving the power of attorney, that then means that all decisions will come through you. You can request that the banks do certain things, cut certain checks, transfer certain funds. You are privy to all of your relatives' medical information and anything that the doctor is planning, anything that a rehab team are planning, anything medications-wise that needs to change. You will be privy to all of that information because of the power of attorney for health and welfare. So each of these documents, I believe, is £82 to register with the UK government. And I'm not sure the period of time that it takes for it to get registered, but once it's registered, it will be a big weight off your mind, because you can then make decisions by phone, by email, from your home country, and not have to be back in Britain to physically do things and be under that time constraint of having to get things happening. So that would be my recommendation as well. You get the power of attorneys set up. Another implication of my father's stroke, knowing that his mobility was then greatly affected, was that he would need dial-a-ride. So here's the dial-a-ride form. You can also download this. This at least applies to London. TfL, I think it is, Travel for London. It's actually a division of London Transport that arranges dial-a-ride. But one of the things you're going to need is any of the discharge paperwork that you get from the hospitals, from the rehab facilities. You will need them to write for you or to craft something in their description of patient's condition that they are immobile, that they can't walk up and down stairs. The point being that at least in London, public transportation would no longer be an option. They can't safely stand at a bus stop, perhaps. They can't safely get up the stairs onto the bus. They can't go up and down the stairs at the tube station if it's a tube station that doesn't have an elevator, that sort of thing. Now, I don't know what happens in this case outside of London, but basically I would imagine if you Google dial-a-ride and then your town or your city, something will come up, be it from a charity, be it from local government. I'm sure there's some equivalent that you can apply to in the town that your relative resides, so that they will still have mobility. The only thing this does not bizarrely apply to are hospital appointments. So dial-a-ride will come at a given time and a given appointment to take the relative wherever they need to go, including their doctor, but not to hospital. For some reason, hospital needs to be arranged, I think, as an ambulance. So that's that. I'm going to insert a little video clip here, so that will go over the voiceover. I realised at this point that my father would also be unable to get groceries, do the shopping the way he used to, no longer able to carry shopping bags, that sort of thing. And so what are we going to do about food? So Meals on Wheels, that was a thing when I grew up in Britain, is at least no longer there in that format. There are a couple of companies whose names I was given, both by the occupational therapist and also by another relative who was in this situation herself when incapacitated after an operation. And you're seeing them here. They come highly recommended. I then, realising that I was going to be setting up accounts with these people, I then went on Amazon and bought a little tabletop freezer, because apparently these companies will deliver the week's meals in one shot, probably on Monday morning, from what I can tell. And so you'll need freezer capacity for a week's worth of meals, which my dad's old fridge does not have. He's just got a little freezer box at the top. So I got that on Amazon. I think it was about maybe £70 for a tabletop freezer. So that takes care of food. The dial-a-ride takes care of transportation. You're hoping that the package of care takes care of physical therapy, trying to resolve the medical situation that your relative finds themselves in. I've covered the financial side of things, certainly that blanket power of attorney for financial and health decisions. I mean, I should say on that, they're two separate things. It may be that you only want one of them. Maybe the distance that your elderly relative is from banks and places where they do their financial transactions means that you should take over that, but they, are still able to walk to the corner to their doctor or to Boots to pick up their prescriptions, or the doctors can still, talk to them and make all of their informed healthcare decisions because their injury was more physical than perhaps mental and cognitive, and so you still feel that they're fine to take care of those sorts of things. Obviously everyone's situation is going to be different on that. So hopefully that info is of some help to you if you're in the position I was in. I'll regularly try and check comments on this to see if anyone had any other questions that came up during this procedure, to see if I can perhaps provide some other suggestions or any other useful info. Okay, thanks for watching.